Welcome back to another episode of the Who You Know Show podcast, where what you know is important, but who you know can make all the difference in your business, career, relationships, and life. My name is Trevor Houston, and on this show, you'll learn the strategy, grit, and mindset it takes to overcome obstacles so you can level up in your career, recover your cash flow, and live the life of purpose that God intended for you. Don't forget to look at the mic drop moments time-stamped in the show notes below. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pay it forward, subscribe, and leave an honest review so we can improve. Thanks for listening. My name is Trevor Houston, and please enjoy this episode of the Who You Know Show.
Daniel Frey is a retired firefighter that helped start one of the first community health programs in the country. He's the co-founder of Fieldmed, a software company that offers community health software, telemedicine, and EMS software. But more importantly, Daniel is a true warrior. Okay.
Yeah.
His story today is about overcoming obstacles and going from surviving to thriving. Daniel, thank you so much for being with us today.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor.
I got connected to you from Elizabeth Haley. She was like, you got to meet this guy. There's something about him. So I connected with you. We had a little Zoom meeting and I was immediately like, oh my gosh, got to get this guy on here. Tell the audience some of your backstory. I know you've got a lot of great things going on. You're climbing the mountains, but it hasn't always been that way.
It definitely has not always been that way. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. When I was 9, my family moved here to actually the colony. Grew up there, went to Louisville High, and then I went off in the military. In between the high school and the military, though, I found myself homeless. I lived on my own since I was about 15. Issues at home, parents got divorced. And so I was homeless for about 3 years. My option was the military. I wasn't really wanting to go in the military, but I picked that as an option. It's one of the best things I ever did. Changed my life. I was Army.
Army.
So,
Go Army.
I was Army many years ago before Iraq and Afghanistan. But so I joined the military, was there did my 4 years in the military, got out, and it's actually a little more. I started in the reserves, loved it. So I went full time. Wasn't sure what I was going to do. I really was just lost in where I was going to go after the Army. I wanted to make a career out of it, but they were cutting jobs and cutting bases. So I took a job working construction. I worked in Chicago and I got a job with a construction company there working on skyscrapers. I was a laborer and I lasted about a year, and it's wintertime and I'm strapped in. It's about 20 below. It's cold as snow. And I'm like, why am I doing this? There's got to be something else. In the meantime, I had met a couple Chicago firefighters. So I met them, become friends with them. They lived in my apartment building that I was living in. And I started going to my paramedic school there, or started going to EMT school there to get my EMT and move on to paramedic. And I just fell in love with the fire service. Came back here, actually lived in Plano, got hired with the Paris Fire Department. And everybody said, Paris, why would you move to Plano and go to the Paris Fire Department? My mom's sister lived up in Paris, and they're like, hey, they're hiring. So I was like, it's a job. Yeah. So I got the job there and I worked there for 11 years. Paris fights a lot of fire. It was a lot of fun when you're young. It's awesome, and they pay nothing. So I started looking at career choice and I went, I still want to be a firefighter. I love doing it. I love what I do, but I need to make some money to pay bills. And the McKinney Fire Department was hired in McKinney, Texas. So I applied there and got hired in McKinney, Texas. Before I retired, I worked there almost 15 years.
Wow.
So 25 in total.
Yeah. I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you so much for your service, not only to the country, but to the communities that you've been serving all this time. And I know that you shared something with me on our Zoom call that it hasn't always been easy. You have PTSD.
Yes, I do. And
talk to us a little bit about that. What are some of the challenges that, on a day-to-day basis that you have to go through, you have to fight through every day just to...
And a lot of this I haven't shared with a lot of people, but a lot of people know I don't hide the PTSD. I did for a while. I was in the fire service because for many years, if law enforcement, any public safety, you say that, and already they don't think you're fit to do your job. Quite honestly, most people that have any time in the fire or law enforcement have PTSD of some sort. But I held it for years after my diagnosis and this thing. It was very hard because you go on calls that remind you of things and you do things that remind you of things, and it's hard to deal with. Most people with PTSD end up drinking too much. They end up divorce, drugs, suicides. Huge in the fire and law enforcement in the last few years. Since I was also military and have some tours, I go to a group called 22 Kill, and that's actually what my ring is. And they specialize in counseling and outreach groups for first responders and veterans. And 22 Kill stands for 22 veterans a day on average that commit suicide. You wear your ring on the trigger finger to remind you. And so So I started going to them, and my counselor, after a little while, he's, I'll back up just a little bit. So as I'm in the fire service, I'm dealing with PTSD. It's hard. Things are rough. I ended up going through a divorce. In 2017, I went through a divorce, and it was very hard. I had 2 kids together. I just adored her. Life was good. So I thought I had worked at this point 22 and a half, 23 years in the fire service, did my military time. I had that, I'm going to retire at 60, just enjoy life and sit around and do crafts and play with my dog and fish. So that was the life I had planned out. And that's the direction I was moving. And I had my 401k and put a little money in savings. I had owned a construction company because every firefighter has a job on their days off. So for many years, I did construction. I was able to put some money aside. At this time, I wasn't doing it. I had sold the company and put that money aside for my retirement.
Yeah.
Ended up going through a divorce, just destroyed me. I was just devastated. And the hard part is when you're 47, I was 47 at the time. I'm like, and this is not where I want to start life over at 47. About a month later, I get diagnosed with cancer due to the fire service. It was contributed 100% to the fire service. The hard part is cities and fire departments don't want to recognize it because they don't want to pay for it. It costs them too much money. So you're left to deal with it on your own. And I was left to deal with it on my own. So the other thing that I was facing is with the divorce, I had 50% custody of 2 kids that were with me a lot of the time. And then I still had all the bills. She didn't take the bills with her.
She just left.
Yeah. So I still had the bills. So I was able to pay bills and everything. But then when I get diagnosed with cancer, one of the things that I was afraid of was being put on workman's comp or sick leave or disability where I get 60% of my pay because I was having a hard time as it was just paying everything we had before. And so I made a very conscious decision not to tell anybody at my work. I told my immediate supervisor and the chief of the department. That way, if I had to take off, they knew. I kept it from my kids. I didn't even explain to my ex-wife the treatments I was going through, friends. I kept it to myself because I was afraid that if word got out, I would be sent home from work and I couldn't afford to pay my bills. I would go to shift and it's 24 on, 48 off. I would go to my shift and I worked the whole shift. And then the next morning I'd go do a treatment. And sometimes I'd have to sit at the hospital for 2 or 3 hours to get myself home because I couldn't get home. And I literally lived straight down the same street. The hospital's on 2 miles. I'd have to wait a few hours because I couldn't get my car and make it home. Then I go home, I sleep for a couple of days and I go back to shift. And I did that through all my treatment. And I didn't tell everybody at work until afterwards. I kept doing that. I went through all that. And in the meantime, while I was doing this, my medical bills mounted like incredible. It's hard enough with insurance. I don't know how anybody does it without insurance. Just the medication alone was costing me a paycheck. And that was my side of the medication after insurance was costing me almost a full paycheck. And I'm trying to pay a mortgage, kids and car payments and insurance and on and on. Over the course of the next 2 years, it was harder and harder for me to do my job. Finally, I got through the treatments and I was healthy enough. I went into remission. I was healthy enough to work, but it was still a little difficult. During that time, I ended up blowing through all the savings I had that I saved up with the construction company. I ended up getting to the point where Fieldmed, the company I have now, the night, and I'll get a little more on Fieldmed, but the night I went to go sign the contract with the business partners, the next morning I'm signing this business contract with these partners. I wake up that morning to go get my truck and go there, and I have no truck. It got repoed the night before.
Oh, man.
So I had to find a ride to sign this contract with this big company. And I had to find a ride to get there because my truck got repossessed. And then when we finally did the deal and after the deal was finally done and we're going forward, I come home, everything's great. I've already dealt with the truck a couple months ago. I get a letter in the mail that my house is in repossession. So it's in foreclosure. My house is in foreclosure. So I was dealing with all that. There were times when I would get my kids and I did not know what to do. My 50% of the time I'd get my kids and I was worried, how am I going to feed them? I had no food in the house. And I'm like, how am I going to get food from the store and stuff? So I would save up a few dollars and get them Sonic, McDonald's, whatever. And I would just skip my meals. I would just skip and I was eating like once a day.
So I would like to reset the stage here for the audience. I think there's so many things. It seems like there was this domino effect, right? Mm-hmm. In PTSD, you were going through a divorce at the same time getting cancer, fighting that, medical bills, having to make the decision of paying those bills or like what to eat, paying the medical bills or paying your car note. Car gets repoed, house is in foreclosure. But things are a little different today.
Things are way different today. Things are incredible today.
Praise God.
Oh, that's the only way I've gotten through everything is just, I've asked God in every step, hey, show me the direction, lead me. I get up, I pray every night and I pray every morning. Just show me the direction I need to go. Show me what I'm going to do. I've been doing this all on my own, my way, and here I am. I need a different way because my way is not working. My way was not working whatsoever.
Before you get into overcoming it, that's pretty low, right? Sounds like you were just an extreme low point. How did you get through that?
I was very low. It was very low. There were many times where I'm like, I'm done with this. I don't want to do it anymore. After when everything finally hit, I was about 50 years old, and I'm single, a single dad. I had my truck repoed. My house is in foreclosure. I don't have a dime to my name, and I'm having a hard time doing my job because I couldn't physically. I was having a hard time doing my job. I was very low, and to the point, my counselor at 22 Kill put me in for a service dog and recommended me for a service dog and that's when I went, oh my gosh, I'm at the point where I have to have a service dog. I have to have a dog to deal with my life. And it just, it was very hard. What got me through it, honestly, were friends, just reaching out and people and just praying to God that it's going to change. And I started a community health program, like Trevor was saying. I was seeing these patients, and these were patients that the hospitals were having a hard time dealing with. They couldn't figure out how to fix them. They were patients that were uninsured, underinsured, had no clue how to take care of themselves. And it was on all sides of town. It wasn't you're poor. It wasn't you're rich. It was everywhere.
And so they were calling in, right? Like they were making 911 calls and emergency calls.
Yeah. So the way it started was they were making all these calls to 911, and some of them would just need a meal, but we wouldn't know why. And they tell us I'm having chest pain or breathing difficulty, just so they can go to hospital and have a meal. Some were doing that because they had nobody to talk to. They're just home alone by themselves. Some of them didn't know the right time or not to call 911. I worked with some of the firefighters at the fire department, a medical director, and we put this program together where we would go out and see patients. We reached out to them and said, hey, we can help you. Instead of calling 911, let us come see you. So instead of sending an ambulance and a fire truck, we would get in a pickup truck. We were still firefighters. We carried all our gear. We carried all the medical gear. We went to extra school, got higher trained so we would understand what's going on. And we would go teach them about congestive heart failure, COPD, diabetes, whatever. We'd help them get their medications. We'd help them get signed up with Medicare and Medicaid. We'd help them with getting wheelchairs and walkers. That. We would help them get Meals on Wheels. I had one lady that called 59 times before she got in the program in 10 months. And after that, she called 11 times in the next 3 years.
Let's rewind that. So she called how many times?
59 in 10 months.
59 times she called 911 in 10 months just because she needed food, needed support, encouragement, something.
So with her, it was food.
It's food.
She needed food. On the ambulance, when they call you, you go, you put them in there and you take them. You take care of that issue that's going on right then. If you don't see an issue, you just transport them, hand them off to the hospital. They let her go if they can't find an issue. So when we started this community health program, she was one of our first patients that we took on. And when we started looking at her history, she was calling about 11 to 12 o'clock every day. So what she would do is she was getting a ride to the hospital. She'd get lunch and she'd walk home. And she was usually leaving the hospital before we cleared in the ambulance. She'd get her food, go home. So the problem was, here's the amazing story, is she lived literally right across the street from Meals on Wheels.
Oh,
I could throw a rock through their front door. It was literally, here's her house right there across the street was Meals on Wheels. Problem was she wasn't old enough to qualify. They have an age. So I went over there, and it means a little more when you go over there in a fire department uniform and a fire truck. And I told them, the people that were around, I said, look, you guys want to help the community. You want to do something right. I said, that lady over there needs help more than anybody.
That's the lady right there.
So because of the delivery and stuff and age limits, we would go to Meals on Wheels once a week and we'd pick up a week's worth of food and bring it to her. Nice. And she stopped calling 911 and we helped her with, she did have legit medical issues too. And exacerbate over time if she didn't get the help, and then she'd end up in the hospital. But we helped her get her medication and other things. We found out she was illiterate. She couldn't read or write. And so we would get her frozen food from Meals on Wheels. We'd come back and she still had all the food. That's because she didn't have a microwave. So we got our microwave. We come back and we found out that all the food's still there. She didn't know how to use a microwave because she couldn't read the numbers and stuff. So I just told her, I said, open the door, put it in, push that button right there. So She learned them. So it's just things like that.
So what you ended up doing is you're going through all of this, as I mentioned before, a domino effect in your life,
Yes.
hitting kind of rock bottom. And then you're serving the community, actually solving a problem, figuring out a solution to a problem that was going on. And now things are a little bit different. You've got a business and things are growing for you. And I'm excited. I want to lean into that. I'm going to paint a picture for you if you are just coming into the segment. So Daniel has overcome PTSD, divorce, cancer, right? All of these different aspects that normally would destroy a person to overcome, to really be an inspiration. And I want to really figure out how. What were the things that got you through the day to day to keep you moving forward, to put that next foot in front of the other?
As we were talking about before the break, my patients, the people that I was seeing, that I was helping, I was helping them with all their issues, but they were also helping me. When I was telling you I didn't want anybody to know at my fire department about what I was going through, I told my chief and I told my supervisor, and my chief right away was like, hey, you need to take time off. I said, no, I need to see my patients. So as I was seeing them, I would let all of them know what I was going through. And when I would go talk to them, we would sit there and we'd talk about their issues and they'd ask how I'm doing. And they just inspired me to keep going, because over my career in the fire service, people with hard times, and we see the worst of the worst. And you just have to remind yourself that whatever I have in this bubble that I live in, I'm not alone and I'm not the only one. And there's other people going through this. So when I'm going through this and I'm able to share this, my patients were baking me cookies. I would go over there and they would have cookies for me. And we would just sit there and talk for a couple hours, where the guys would give me a hard time. Look, you've seen this patient, long enough. Let's go to the next one. And my days were long, but it was because I was sharing. I was helping them just as much as they were helping me. That, my kids, and they just keep me going. And just knowing that if I put in God's hands, I'm going to be okay. Things will be okay eventually, somehow, whatever that is. There's a plan. I don't know what the plan is. I will get there.
So you're a servant leader. You went out into the community, stepped out, started serving people, probably didn't know where exactly it was going, but you were just solving a problem that you saw in front of you. And tell us about where you're at now, because that problem that you were solving for this community, which the community was actually serving you back, that kept pushing you forward. Now, where are we at today? Because now you've got a company and things are growing. And
yeah, so it's funny. So when I was doing this was a new program. We were the first fire department to have a fully functioning program in the country. There was a couple privates. Now there's a couple thousand running, and it's growing big, really big. There was no software for it. So you have EMS software, you have go to doctor's office, they report things on software, home health, everybody. This is a little bit of a collaboration of every kind of software, every kind of reporting. There was none out there at the time. So I was putting on notebook paper. I was going through all my treatments. It was hard. And a couple of guys at work are like, you need to find a way to develop the software. So I went into it going, I'll develop the software. I'm going to go out there and sell this software to everybody. I'm going to have a business and I'm going to market and I'm going to do all this.
Hold on. Are you a software developer?
Absolutely not. Nor am I a marketer. So I am so glad I found an incredible team to work with. Hold on. That right there, that's a golden nugget. That's a mic drop moment, because what I want to lean in, guys, don't be afraid to step out, because you may not have all the answers, but what you did is you took action anyways, right? Something was leading you somewhere. You took action and you built a team to help you, because we don't always have I don't know where this who you know stuff's going. We're going somewhere though, right? Absolutely.
But we got to take action. You got to put one foot in front of the other.
Serve your way to your breakthrough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agree 100%. And I've just found over time, one of the things that's helped is reinvent myself to where I'm going, where I'm going to be. If this is not working and I'm at a stopping point, or I need to change, or I'm just stagnant, not getting anywhere, you take classes online. I've taken classes online. With the software company, I know nothing about software. The guys laugh at me because I couldn't get on Slack and talk to them. We had this conversation one day and they were like, why don't you respond to us on Slack ever? I'm like, I don't know how, because I can put the stuff in Slack, but there wasn't a send button. There's a little blue plane on my phone. Well, there is now. Slack fixed it. Somebody told me. But before you hit return, I didn't know you hit return. So I would type stuff in Slack and I'd stare at it going, how do I send this?
There it is. Yeah.
And that's how bad I was in software. And I'm co-owner of a software company. So you reinvent yourself. And I took a class and I'm still taking this class on how to program, because I don't want to program. I'm never going to program, but I want to know what my guys are doing so I can be more relevant in my company. So as I'm doing this, I had a few things that I needed to get trademarked, and I went to an attorney, great guy, helped me trademark stuff. And he happened to know, after I got to know him, he knew what I was doing. I was looking at, he happened to know an investor, put me in touch with this investor. He just so happened to be in partners in a previous deal with a guy who is now part owner of one of the nation's largest anesthesia reporting companies called Rapium Health. Met with them, talked with them. They said, we'd love to be in that space. We love what you're doing. We love it. And we all met, and I pitched it to them. And the funny thing is, I had a couple other offers, couple other deals for software. They were going to make the software, do the software. And I thought, $10,000, $20,000. No, I'm having software made $2, $3, $5 million. Okay? And I'm like, I'm going to come up with that money.
Right.
So I get these guys and they're like,
take care of that.
And he did.
And he
And he
did,
did.
yeah,
And he
he
always
did.
does.
Wow.
And this team came to me and said, we would love to be in that. We would love to partner with you. We want to be your partner. We don't want to develop your software. We don't develop software. We partner. So I partnered with them. They had the marketing team. They had the sales team. They had the development team. They had everything.
Wow.
And best of all, this is just an incredible group of very good Christian men. They have taught me so much and mentored me and just been straight up. I was worried about going in the beginning, and I don't have to go too far on this. In the beginning, I had a couple of business partners and they tried to steal the business from me.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
They started trademarking my stuff and not
Yep.
telling me. Luckily, my attorney found it before they went too far. These guys here,
They're on the
incredible.
up and up.
They're on the up and up. They're great, great, good group of Christian guys, and they're
I love that. That's
unbelievable.
even better. Okay,
Yeah.
so you had some snakes in the grass with you,
Oh, yeah.
and here comes God says, "Now let me weed these snakes out, and let me connect this dot and this dot. Here we go."
That's exactly what
And
happened.
he says he'll do that in his word, y'all.
I wanted to just ask you a little bit more because I think it's very interesting. I mean, you started with this concept, you saw this need through your service, through your servant leadership, and this has blossomed. Now, it's a Fieldmed, right?
Yes.
It's a software that does what?
So yeah, when you see patients, if an ambulance comes to your house or when an ambulance picks up a patient, they have to report on everything they've done, from your vitals to your personal information to what medical treatments they've done, medication, so on and so on. So there's that in their world. There's the same in your home health world and doctor's world. Community health had nothing for that because community health is very specific on how they see patients. We do things like home evaluations, help them get wheelchairs and walkers and things. So you have there's needs sections. You're not seeing that patient on a one-time basis. You're scheduling maybe once a week, every other week, once a month. So you need to understand what I need to do for this patient so it doesn't fall through the cracks. You promise someone who is depending on you for a wheelchair, and then you don't do it because you forgot where you wrote it down. And the other thing with it is we do patient care plans. So when you see a patient and their blood sugar is always low and they don't understand how to deal with their diabetes and how to do their insulin, you work with them, and the care plan then is, okay, I need you to do this and work on this. So you come up with this care plan. You need a way to track that and trend where they're going with it. So the software shows their vitals, and it shows trending and tracking with graphs and their vitals. So you can tell if the plan you're coming up with for this patient is actually helping or not helping. And if it's not helping, you can adjust your plan.
Yeah.
The patients have wounds. Some of these patients have wounds. So we have a section in there that you can report on their wounds. If you ask a paramedic to call a doctor and the doctor says, well, you describe the wound, you're going to go, that's about this big, or it's as big as a quarter. That doesn't help the doctor. They need to know how deep it is, what level it is, all that.
Where it is.
So we have software that not only can you write it's as big as a quarter, but you take a picture and it adds the picture of the wound to it. So the doctor can not only hear it, now they can see that wound as well. And of course, now up until within the last year, telemedicine for paramedics in the field has been all but non-existent with everything going on now. So we have telemedicine. So now you can telemedicine your patients at home instead of having to go and see them. And these are the sickest of the sick, usually the community health patients. So instead of bringing something that you may have caught on a 911 call or at the fire station or wherever to that patient, now making them possibly deathly
Yeah,
sick,
even more sick.
you can do a telemedicine and you can still do the reporting on your end. So
I love it. I just think it's awesome. I mean, what a story of overcoming obstacles and God just using you, using your servant heart and your giving into the communities to connect dots and ultimately create this business that is it's a game changer. It's going to revolutionize the medical industry. I think it's just awesome.
it's been incredible for me. It's funny. A couple of years ago, like I said, I was in this low of low And now I'm sitting here, I've had
Yeah.
medical journals. I've been in medical journals and I've been on blogs and this and that. And it's amazing to me. And the way I look at it, it's my way of continuing my community health outside the fire department. And it's awesome. I love it because I'm still able to reach out and help people and do things. And it's really cool. It's very humbling. And the one thing I've learned is no matter where you're at in life, no matter what's going on, you could still get thrown a left-hand curve.
Oh, yeah.
And you just gotta deal with it and know that you're going to be okay. Things are going to be fine and it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Serve your way to your breakthrough.
You got to be willing to see the door.
Man, I just thank you so much because I know the audience can relate. I know the audience is going through a hard time. I know it may feel like the world is against you, that there's this domino effect emotionally, mentally, financially. It's impacting you. Maybe you got your car repoed recently. Like it could be right now. It's not seeming like your best year. And you know what? I wanted to share this story with you guys because look, God will work it out. I want you to think about the times in your life, the other things that you've been through in your life, and God has always seen it through. You're still here today. You will get through. And this is a perfect testimonial for that. And I want to say thank you for being here. Guys, in the audience, let's show Daniel some love real quick. If you can go, let's take a screenshot. If the audience could take a screenshot of this show, and I want you to post it, okay, on whatever channel you're on. If you want to do all your channels, whatever. I don't care, whatever you do. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I don't care. Post this picture, take the screenshot, tag Daniel and Fieldmed.
Fieldmed.
Fieldmed, Fieldmed, and tell him how much it meant to you and what you learned from this show and how much you appreciate him being here today. We really appreciate you.
I really appreciate it. And all I can say is just don't ever give up.
Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about Who You Know.